Continuing with Vietnam, we're going to look at President Johnson. Of course, President Kennedy was assassinated in 1963. Ironically, he was assassinated the same month that No Din Diem was, just a week or two later. Right? So Lyndon Johnson became president with the assassination of President Kennedy, and he is going to get the U.S. much more involved. Right? And one of the reasons is known as the Gulf of Tonkin. Right? In August of 1964, a U.S. destroyer is in the Gulf of Tonkin. The North Vietnamese claimed that we were in their territory, although international law says we were in international waters. The destroyer is attacked by some North Vietnamese torpedo boats, although no real damage is done. Congress responds by passing the Gulf of Tonkin resolution. Right? There's a newspaper from the time showing the U.S. beats off attack by 3 red Vietnam torpedo boats. Red refers to communism. We'll go back to that for one more second. The Gulf of Tonkin resolution, what it did was it allowed President Johnson to use whatever force necessary to bring about victory in South Vietnam. It's not quite a declaration of war, but it gave him pretty much the same authority as if they had declared war. So when you get the election of 1964, the Democrats, of course, are going to nominate Lyndon Johnson, LBJ. He was fairly popular. He's coming off the assassination of President Kennedy, who was very popular. He was the vice president, and so his popularity was pretty high. There's a picture of President Johnson. The Republicans nominated Barry Goldwater. That's a picture of Goldwater. Well, the Electoral College goes decidedly to LBJ. He wins 486 to 52, and he wins by 42 million to 27 million in the popular vote. It's a big popular vote win. The average, I've told you, is 5 to 7 million. He ends up winning by 15.5 million. There is a picture of the Electoral College. Notice the one thing, we've been talking about the Solid South always voting Democrat. The 1960s with the Civil Rights Movement, the South now are voting the opposite and voted Republican. The old southern states there from South Carolina, Louisiana, the Deep South as they call it. The only other state that Goldwater takes is, as you can see, Arizona. President Johnson's going to expand the war. In February of 65, there's an attack, and basically, not sure who did it, but 8 Americans are killed, 126 are wounded, and President Johnson starts to expand the war and starts a bombing campaign of North Vietnam. Right? When you look at the numbers, in 1965, the number of U.S. troops in Vietnam, South Vietnam, was at 25,000. By the end of the year, President Johnson has increased it to 184,000. By 1966, he had increased it to 385,000. And by 1968, the next presidential election, President Johnson has increased the number of troops in South Vietnam to over 500,000, keeping in mind that most of these troops were young draftees. And there's a picture of some of our troops walking away from a helicopter in South Vietnam. When you look at the battlefield in Vietnam, it's a tropical climate, which brings a lot of problems just because it's tropical. You have elephant grass in South Vietnam. Elephant grass grows to be about 10 feet tall. Here's some pictures. You get the idea there. And there's a picture of a soldier moving through the elephant grass. Be a great place to hide. All right. The main crop in Vietnam is rice. The thing about rice is it uses a lot of water, and so they grow it in small ponds. It floats around, and then you pick it. Right? There's some rice fields in Vietnam. Okay. So being tropical, it has a damp climate. You have all that water from the rice, so you have a lot of leeches and skin problems. One disease they call jungle rot. That's basically a fungus that gets on your skin, and it basically starts to eat your skin, and you have to use the proper medicines to get rid of it. Right? The other thing about jungle rot is one thing for soldiers in boots, you get a lot of athlete's foot, really bad cases of it, and so very hard to walk march and go through all the jungle areas when you have athlete's foot. Right? Identifying the enemy is difficult because it's not an army so much as it is rebels, so they're not wearing uniforms. They would just blend in with the crowd. The Viet Cong, which are the name of the rebels, they like to use booby traps a lot when our troops are going through the jungle looking for them. Some things that they used were snares. They would have holes with punji sticks. A punji stick is a sharpened bamboo uh, stick, and they would put it in these big holes a couple feet down, so you're walking along, you fall into it, and it would kill you. Right? And then they had tripwires, which would cause explosives to go off. Those are punji sticks. You can see why you wouldn't want to fall into one of those holes. Tripwires, you can see the soldier walking through the water, and then there's a grenade attached to it. Once he hits that wire, the grenade will go off. Weapons, the U.S. uses the B-52 bomber in Vietnam. Starting in April of 1960, it carries about 80,000 pounds of bombs. There's a picture of one dropping some bombs. We used Agent Orange, which was an herbicide. An herbicide is a chemical meant to kill plants. And so we were trying to kill the jungle so we could see where the Viet Cong were hiding. Later, we found out it caused health problems in humans, and a lot of American soldiers were exposed to it and had health problems in the 70s. There's a picture of aircraft dropping Agent Orange on the jungle, and that's what the jungle looked like after you dropped Agent Orange on it. All the trees are dead. We use napalm, kind of like jelly, but once you put in the bomb, once it drops, it ignites, and you have this fire, and it doesn't go out very easily, and then it burns uncontrollably, and just continues to burn. It would also stick to skin, and so people that were in the area, it would go flying during the explosion, hit the enemy soldiers, enemy combatants, and stick to them. Right? We also, main reason to use it was to burn down parts of the jungle. If we didn't have Agent Orange there, we'd drop napalm, burn down the jungle so we could see what they were doing. There's a picture of a napalm bomb going off.